It was a rainy afternoon in a quiet neighborhood of Seattle. The wind whispered gently through the trees, and the gray sky cast a dim light through the fogged-up windows of the Kensei Dojo, a martial arts center renowned for training the finest jiu-jitsu fighters in the state. Inside, anticipation filled the air. A special beginner's session had been announced, and the room buzzed with the nervous energy of young students, most of them cocky, eager to show off or, at the very least, mock those who fumbled. They wore pristine uniforms and brand new belts, chatting and laughing, expecting a typical training day. Suddenly, the dojo door creaked open. A hush fell over the group as an elderly woman stepped inside. Her hair was white and neatly tied into a bun. She wore a time-worn judo kimono, its fabric faded with age, and on her feet were old, worn-out shoes. Her steps were careful, slightly wobbly, and she leaned gently on a polished wooden cane. At first, there was only silence. Then came the chuckles. "Hey, lady, this isn't a tea party," called out a boy from the back. "Are you lost? The knitting class is next door." Laughter followed. The old woman, however, didn't flinch. She offered no sharp retort, no embarrassment, just a quiet, graceful smile. Without a word, she walked slowly to the counter where the dojo master, Sensei Harlot, stood observing her with a curious expression. "Good afternoon," she said softly. "I'm here for the introductory class." The master was taken aback for a moment. His eyes studied her, the wrinkles on her hands, the dignified posture, and most of all, the strange calm that seemed to surround her like a cloak. "Welcome," he finally said, nodding. "Let's begin the warm-up." There were more whispers and giggles in the changing room. The students exchanged smirks and snarky comments. "She won't last 5 minutes." "She'll need an ambulance before we're even done warming up." What none of them knew was that this frail-looking woman carried a past deeper than any belt color in the room, a history woven with silence, pain, and an unfathomable strength. Even Sensei Harlot, experienced as he was, couldn't begin to imagine who she truly was. In the locker room, she hung her coat on a hook and gently folded her cane, slipping it into her bag. Then she tied a white belt around her faded kimono as if she'd done it 1,000 times, an automatic gesture, performed with quiet dignity. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror. It revealed a bent frame, a face carved with years, and weary eyes. But behind those eyes, there burned a fire, a small, steady flame that no one had noticed. Yet, on the tatami, the students bounced and rolled, warming up with exaggerated energy. In a quiet corner, the old woman stood still. Then, with calm precision, she began a breathing routine. Ancient, rhythmic movements, fluid and measured, unlike anything seen in the dojo before. It was not flashy, not loud, but it was flawless. The students chuckled again. "Is she meditating or dozing off?" "Come on, Grandma, this isn't yoga class." But Sensei Harlot remained silent, observing intently. His trained eyes saw what the others couldn't: the positioning of her feet, the straightness of her spine, the balance in her form. This woman wasn't a joke. She was disciplined and experienced. He approached her. "Have you practiced before?" he asked gently. She looked up and offered another soft smile. A long time ago." Her answer was vague, but it unsettled him more than it should have. He nodded, then called for the first partner drill, a simple ground choke in pairs. No one moved toward her. No one wanted to be paired with the old lady. Eventually, a newly promoted blue belt named Kyle stepped forward, sighing. He rubbed his hands together mockingly. "All right, Granny, just don't bite me, okay?" He laughed, but the laughter would not last. They knelt across from each other on the mat. Kyle grinned smugly. Around them, a small crowd of students gathered, some pulling out phones, ready to record what they thought would be comedy gold. "We'll begin with a basic chokehold," Sensei announced. "Kyle, go easy." Kyle gave a playful nod, then moved behind her. He looped his arms around her neck, clumsily and confidently. And then, in a flash, everything changed. The moment his grip tightened, the old woman twisted her body. It was a blur, fast, sharp, precise. She used Kyle's own force against him, slipped under his arm, turned her hips, and flipped him over her shoulder with astonishing ease. Thud! The room went dead silent. Kyle lay stunned on the mat, locked in a perfect armbar. His face flushed, his breath shallow. He tapped the mat 3 times in submission. The entire exchange had lasted less than 10 seconds. No one could comprehend what had just happened. Laughter died. Phones slowly lowered. Even Sensei Harlot stood frozen. The old woman calmly let go, stood up, and offered Kyle her hand. He stared at her, dazed, then took it. She helped him up, then walked back to her corner with serene grace. "What just happened?" someone whispered. Kyle sat in stunned silence. "She tossed me like I was a damn pillow," he muttered. Sensei Harlot approached her, his voice no longer casual but deeply respectful. "Madam, what is your name?" She met his gaze. "Clara," she said quietly. "Clara Ishikawa." The name sent a chill through him. His breath caught in his throat. That name, he knew it. He had read about it in martial arts history. It belonged to a legend. Clara Ishikawa, the prodigy who had once conquered the global jiu-jitsu circuit back in the 1970s. A rare female master among men, revered and feared for her flawless technique and tactical genius. She had disappeared decades ago, vanishing from the martial world without a trace after one final overwhelming victory. No interviews, no retirement ceremony, only rumors that she had lost someone dear or had protested corruption in the fighting federations. But no one had ever confirmed what had truly happened to her. And now, she stood here, older, quieter, but still as sharp as a hidden blade. Sensei Harlot stepped closer and bowed deeply. "Madam Ishikawa, is it truly you?" Clara gave him a tired but knowing smile. "I was her, yes, a long time ago." As the session came to an end, no one laughed anymore. The students who had mocked her now sat quietly, humbled and wide-eyed. Even Kyle, still nursing his pride, seemed changed, his arrogance replaced by genuine respect. Clara bowed once to the room, then reached for her cane and bag, her movements as graceful as ever. Before leaving, she turned back and looked at the young faces now filled with awe. "Strength," she said softly, "isn't in your muscles. It's in your discipline, your patience, and your ability to keep learning, even when the world stops watching." And with that, she walked out into the rain. Never underestimate someone based on their appearance, age, or silence. True mastery doesn't boast or beg for attention. It reveals itself only when needed. Respect isn't earned by loud words or flashy moves, but by quiet strength and a lifetime of perseverance. The greatest warriors often wear the most unassuming faces.